Now, Democrats and Republicans are ready to get back to work and pass Biden's social spending bill this week. But the lawmakers better hurry because time is running out to avoid a government shutdown and also raise that ceiling at the same time. And with the Thanksgiving holiday in the rearview mirror, the Congress is once again facing a time crunch to accomplish a number of major legislative priorities before the end of the year. After punting the decisions early in the year, lawmakers need to both fund the government past the current December 3rd deadline and raise that ceiling before the U.S. defaults onto its debt. And Senate Democrats also hope to advance Biden's $1.9 trillion reconciliation bill in order to build the Build Back Better Act after it passed the House in mid-November, and the chamber also needs to make headway on the National Defense Authorization Act, an annual must-pass policy. In its current form, the bill includes lower prescription prices, universal pre-kindergarten, and the expanded child tax credit, as well as 4 weeks of paid family leave. But it could still change substantially prior to any passage. Short-term extensions for government funding and the debt ceiling, meanwhile, received bipartisan support in this fall. But it's unclear whether lawmakers can get behind an omnibus spending bill before the December 3rd deadline. And the Republicans have already signaled that they may not support another increase to the debt ceiling, despite the potentially severe consequences of a U.S. default. Dick Durbin told reporters, "Now it's our turn and we've got to buckle down. We have several things that are critical, including debt ceiling and continuing resolution. It's going to be a busy December, but we've got to get the job done." So let's go over everything Congress must get done before December 25th and why it's so important. Well, at the top of Congress's to-do list is to make sure the lights stay on past December 3rd. Congress passed a continuing resolution on September 30th to fund the government through that date and avoid a shutdown. But it's set to expire this Friday, and it's looking increasingly unlikely that lawmakers will successfully advance an omnibus spending bill before then. A likely alternative is another continuing resolution, which could fund the government through February or March and give Congress even more time to finalize its 2022 appropriations bill. Lawmakers could also opt for a stopgap measure, funding the government until December 17th, in hopes that a type schedule will force Congress to come to an agreement about the full appropriations bill, or at least give them some time to make progress on it before passing the stopgap measure. Now, whatever path they take, Congress will have to get straight to work. When members return from the Thanksgiving break, starting Monday, they only have 5 days to avert a government shutdown. Next on the list is raising debt ceiling, and according to a November 16th letter from the Treasury Secretary, the government could reach a debt ceiling by December 15th, at which point she wrote, "There are scenarios in which the Treasury will be left with insufficient remaining resources to continue to finance the operations of the government." In October, Congress voted to increase that limit by $480 billion, which gave the Treasury enough funds to keep the government solvent, at least for a while. But now, with the December 15th deadline fast approaching, it's unclear whether Republicans will play ball with Democrats to avoid potentially catastrophic consequences. The U.S. has actually never defaulted on its debt, although it has come close, and the economists say that to do so would have catastrophic consequences, including potentially reversing the progress of recovery from the crisis. So that's all the news I have for you in today's Fourth Stimulus Check Update. If you found this video in any way useful or helpful, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends and family.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Grace Meng, all the way from Queens, New York. I want to say a special thank you to our caucus chairman, Hakeem Jeffries, and to our small business chairwoman, Nydia Velasquez, and their teams for putting together this important event. We are here, of course, to celebrate the passage of a monumental and historical piece of legislation in the Build Back Better Act, and to implore the Senate to take up this piece of life-saving piece of legislation as soon as possible. This will make tremendous investments and transformational changes in the lives of our fellow New Yorkers and Americans all across the country. It will help so many of our working families and our kids and our senior citizens. As a mom of 2 young kids, helping our families and kids, this is one of the most important investments that we can make for our country. For programs like paid leave, which will help everyone from the newborn to being able to take care of our elderly, to our UPK programs that will help early education of our 3-year-olds and our 4-year-olds, which will be transformational in their lives. For child tax credits, expansion, like Carolyn Maloney said, which will help lift so many of our kids and families out of poverty. In my district alone, in the month of October, there were about 70,000 payments that were made.
For being here. We're here today, an illustrious group is gathered here today with me to celebrate the signing into law of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. President Biden signed that, better known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, last week. The bill makes historic investments in infrastructure, in jobs, and in an effort to address climate change. It's a $1.2 trillion bill. And California, like the other 49 states, will benefit greatly from this. Our area, Sonoma County, the 5th District, and the rest of California will benefit greatly as well. There's a little north of $25 billion in the bill for investment in highway improvements. There's about $10 billion for transit projects. There's over $4 billion in bridges. And I think anyone who's been following transportation issues knows that we're in a deep hurt in regard to bridge repair. There are so many bridges across the state and even in the district where bridge investment is sorely needed for safety reasons, if nothing else. I did an event like this up in Lake County yesterday, and we did it on a bridge. It was one that had just been finished. The county wanted to hold the press conference there to illustrate the importance of investing in these bridges. And they had a picture of the bridge that we were standing in front of that was taken just before it was redone. And they had highway marker signs in from both sides of the bridge, reducing it down to one lane, because it was a wooden structure bridge that was rotting from the outside in. And they had to keep traffic in the middle, or the rotted timbers would have collapsed into the creek. And I think that was a real good example of the situation we're in regard to bridges. There's also money in this bill to mitigate for wildfires. There's clean drinking water funding in here. Critically important funding for airports. And as I said, it's a step forward in dealing with climate change. There's money in here to establish electric vehicle charging stations, not only throughout our state, but across the country. There's funding for clean fuel buses, and all of this will give us a good start on what we need to do in regard to addressing climate change, the number one issue that is facing us as a people. And then critically, there's